Okay guys, welcome to Login Science. In today's video, we are going to solve question 1 from November 2020 past exam paper. Okay, so the question is from DBE. Okay, you need to know your algebra. So in today's question, we are going to see a bit of algebra. You need to know how to solve equations. You need to know how to solve inequalities. Okay, so the question is from November 2020, question 1. Paper 1 from DBE. Okay, so this is the question. You can see the question is out of 22 marks. Let me get started on the next slide. So question 1, let me get the question. This is the question 1 from November 2020. Okay, you can see this is the question 1, and we start with 1.1. okay, 1.1 says solve for x, and we have 1.1.1. okay, 1.1.1. you need to solve for x. You are given x squared minus 6x is equal to 0. You need to solve for x. Okay, let me put the question here. So what can you do when you have this question? You need to solve for x. You can factorize what is common in both of the terms. You can see there is x here and there is also x in this. Okay, so you can factorize x outside of the bracket. So you have x like this, you open your bracket, and then you remain with x minus 6. Okay, you close your bracket. You can see when x multiply x, you have x squared. When x multiply 6, you have 6x. Okay, so you have factorized. You took x outside of the bracket. Okay, and this is equal to 0. Okay, and finally x is equal to 0, right? Or x is equal to 6. Okay, so when you make this part equal to 0 and you solve for x, the negative 6 will go to the other side, and then you have x is equal to 6. So you have solved for x is equal to 0 or x is equal to 6. This is how you solve this question, and the question is 2 marks. Okay, simple as that. And always make sure you check your answers. You have to plug 0 in there and see if both sides of the equal sign will be equal. And you also use 6. You plug 6 in there. Okay, let's move on to the next question, which is 1.1.2. okay, and the question is x squared plus 10x plus 8 is equal to 0. This is the question. You can see you need to solve for x correct to 2 decimal places. There is no need for you to stress, because they are telling you that you need to find your answer to 2 decimal places. This tells you that you can just go and use your quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is this one, x is equal to, you have it. Okay, in case you forget what the quadratic formula is, you have to remember that the quadratic formula will be given to you on the information sheet in the exam together with the question paper. Okay, so in case you forget it, just check on the information sheet. You'll find the quadratic formula. So this is the quadratic formula, and so x is equal to, you have negative b. What is your b? Your b is 10. Remember, this is a is 1, b is 10, and c is 8. So just like in alphabetical order, you have a, b, and c. Okay, your b is 10. Okay, so you have negative b, it's negative, your b is 10. Okay, plus or negative, you have plus or negative there. Okay, and you have the square root sign, and you have b squared, and b is 10. Okay, so you have 10 squared minus 4ac, it's minus 4. What is a? A is 1. There is an invisible coefficient of 1 in front of x squared. So a is 1, b is 10, c is 8. Okay, there's a, and what is c? C is 8. Okay, over 2a. 2 times a is 1, okay? And then from here, what you have to do is to use your calculator, okay? I'm going to use my emulator. This is my emulator, the one I'm using. It's my calculator, okay? So I have x is equal to this, okay? Use your calculator. There's negative 10. 10 is b, okay? Plus or negative. Okay, let me start with plus, and then after that, I'm going to use negative, okay? Plus, and then you have the square root. I hope you are following. And then you have 10 squared, which is 100, but let's put 10 squared minus 4 times 1, and then times 8, okay, over 2a. So this is 2 times 1, which is 2, but let's put it 2 times 1, okay. And so the answer is, you press this to get your answer in decimal. So the answer is negative 0.88. Remember, the question is saying write your answer correct to 2 decimal places. So to 2 decimal places, it will be negative 0.88. Okay, so x is equal to negative 0.88. Okay, or x is equal to, now you have to change the plus to negative because there is plus or negative. I have used plus. Now I'm going to use negative. Okay, let me change it. So let me change the plus to negative and see what the value of x is. Okay, this is my plus. You change it, you delete, and then you put negative. I hope you can see that. And so the answer will be, you press this to get your answer to decimal. Okay, so the answer is negative 9.12. So correct to 2 decimal places. Okay, so the answer is negative 9.12. Okay, so this is the answer for question 1.1.2, correct to 2 decimal places. Okay, and always make sure that you check your answers. And so let's move on to the next question. So the question is 1.1.3. Okay, 1.1.3, and you have this. Okay, you can see 1 minus x in bracket and x plus 2 in bracket less than 0. Okay, let me close this for now. Okay, this is the question. This is an inequality that you are given. Okay, so from here, what you need to do is to get the key numbers or critical values or the zeros or the roots. Okay, so they can call them key numbers. In some textbook, you'll see that they are calling them critical values. Some textbook can call them the zeros, or you might find that in some textbook they are calling them the roots. Okay, so do not be confused if they are calling them key numbers or critical values or the zeros or the roots. They mean the same thing. So this is what you do when you are solving a quadratic inequality. Okay, so this is a quadratic inequality. To solve a quadratic inequality, you need to find your key numbers first, or your critical values, or your zeros, or your roots. Okay, so I prefer to call them key numbers. Okay, I'm going to use the word key numbers. To find the key numbers, what you have to do is to take this first bracket, you make it equal to 0, and you solve for x. You also take the second bracket, you make it equal to 0, and you solve for x. Okay, so the first bracket is 1 minus x. You make it equal to 0, and you solve for x. And you take the second bracket, which is x plus 2. You also make it equal to 0, and you solve for x. Okay, let's solve for x here. So you have negative x is equal to, you take 1 to the other side, it becomes negative 1. And so x, when you multiply by negative 1 throughout, so that you can get the value of x, x is equal to 1. Okay, you do the same here. X is equal to negative 2 when you take the 2 to the other side. So your key numbers are negative 2 and 1. Okay, or your critical values are 1 and negative 2. So this is how you solve a quadratic inequality. you need to find first your key numbers or your critical values. How can you see that this is a quadratic inequality? You can see that when this x multiply with this other x, you are going to have x squared. And this is a quadratic inequality, which is an inequality of the second degree. So the highest degree is 2. Okay, so you have to know that the key numbers are the x values that make the inequality equal to 0. Okay, so these are the x value that make this inequality equal to 0. Okay, so we call them key numbers or critical values or the zeros or the root. Okay, now from here what you need to do is to test the interval. How can you test the interval? You need to get what? The number line first. Okay, this is the number line. Remember, you have 0 there, and you have 1, and you have 2, and you have 3, right? Like this. Okay, and on the left side you have -1, like this, and -2, and -3, and so on. Now from here, you need to locate your key numbers on the number line, right? So you have x equal to 1 and x equal to -2. You need to locate them on the number line. Okay, remember, you don't have an equal sign there, right? You don't have an equal sign there. You only have less than. Okay, so what you have to do is to locate your key numbers on the number line. You have x equal to 1, so it is there. I put my open circle. So I'm going to have a closed circle only when we have an equal sign there. That is only when you are going to have a closed circle. But since you don't have an equal sign, you're going to have an open circle. Okay, and you do the same. You locate this key number on the number line. So x is equal to -2. There is -2. So you have an open circle there, not a closed circle. I have an open circle because there is no equal sign there. Okay, I have less than. Sometimes you might have less than or equal to, or you can have greater than or equal to, but you only have less than. There is no equal sign. This is why you must have an open circle. What you need to do now is to test the interval. Can you see the key numbers? They are dividing this number line into 3 intervals. I hope you can see those 3 intervals. You can see the first interval is before -2. This is the interval before -2, right? Before -2, you have the first interval, and in between -2 and 1, you have this interval, right? Between -2 and 1, you have this interval, the second interval, and after 1, you have this interval. Okay, so you have 3 intervals. You have this interval, and this interval, and this interval. You have in total 3 intervals. Okay, so the key numbers or the critical values are dividing the number line into 3 intervals. Okay, now from here what you have to do is to test your intervals. Okay, you have 3 intervals. You need to test these intervals. You are going to test each interval, starting with this one, and then after that this one, and then after that this one. Okay, let's start with this one. Let's test this interval. Okay, you can see to test this interval, you are going to take any value before -2. Any value before -2. You are going to take it and plug in there and see if the answer is going to be a negative or a positive answer. Okay, so before -2, you can use any value. Before -2, you have -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, and so on. So use any value before -2 and plug it in there and see if the answer is going to be a negative or a positive answer. Okay, you can do this mentally, but let me do this with a calculator so that you can understand this, right? Let me use a calculator. You can do this mentally. You don't need to use a calculator. Okay, I said that you can use any value before -2. Okay, before -2, you have -3, -4, -5, and so on. Okay, let me use -6, right? -6 is less than -2, right? -6 is less than -2. I hope you know that. So -6 is before -2. Let's use -6. Let's plug it in there. So you have the bracket, and then you have 1, minus negative 6. I'm using negative 6. So I'm going to plug negative 6 wherever there is x. So it's minus x. So what is x? Negative 6. Right? There is x. Replace it with negative 6. And then you can see I have negative 60. And there is also another negative. Don't forget that. And then you open another bracket. You have x plus 2. You put negative 6 there. So you are plugging negative 6 wherever there is x. So you have negative 6 plus 2. So this is how you test your interval. And what is the answer? The answer is negative 28. So you can see the answer is a negative answer. So when you use any value before negative 2, you are going to get a negative answer. So let's put negative there, right? We have negative on this interval. Okay, after that, let's test this interval, the interval between negative 2 and 1. So you have to use any value in between negative 2 and 1. You can use 0 or negative 1 or any number which is a decimal. So there is 0.5 between 0 and 1. Okay, let's use negative 1. So use any number between negative 2 and 1. I'm going to use negative 1 because negative 1 is between negative 2 and 1. I'm going to use negative 1 to test this interval. Okay, let me start from the beginning. So I'm using negative 1. I'm going to take negative 1 and plug it in there. So I'm going to plug it wherever there is x. Okay, so I have the bracket there, 1 minus x, right? What is x? Negative 1, like this. Okay, remember there is a negative there, and then you have negative 1, like this. And then you open another bracket, you have x, x is negative 1. Remember, I'm using negative 1. So you are plugging negative 1 wherever there is x. So you have negative 1 plus 2, and you close your bracket. And the answer is 2. Can you see this is a positive answer, right? So if you use any value in between negative 2 and 1, you are going to get a positive answer. Okay, so for this interval, we have tested it and we found that in this interval, it will be positive. Okay, I have positive there. Now let's test this interval after 1. So after 1, you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So any value that is after 1, any value that is greater than 1, right? So you have 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Okay, let me use 3. I'm going to use 3 to test this interval. You can use any number after 1 to test this interval. So for me, I'm going to use 3. So let me use 3. Okay, let me start from the beginning. I have my bracket 1 minus x. So 1 minus 3. Close your bracket. You open your bracket. You have x plus 2. X is 3. I'm using 3. You plug 3 wherever you have x. So it's 3 plus 2. You close your bracket. And the answer is negative 10. Okay. So if you use any number after 1, you are going to find that the answer will always be a negative. Okay. So on this interval, we have tested it. We found that it's going to be negative. Okay. So you can do this mentally. You don't need to use a calculator. You can do it quickly without using a calculator. Now, after testing our interval, you can see according to this inequality, you only need this to be less than 0. And you understand that less than 0 means negative. So which interval is applicable? Which interval is going to satisfy this inequality? You can see only the part which is negative. Remember, negative is less than 0. So it will be this part, right? And this one, not the one in the middle, because in the middle we have positive. So all the numbers before negative 2 will satisfy this inequality, or all the numbers less than negative 2 will satisfy this inequality. And also all the numbers after 1 or all the numbers greater than 1 will satisfy this inequality, because you have negative there and you also have negative there, and the inequality must be less than 0, and this is negative. So from here you can see that this interval, the one which is negative, and this interval, right, like this, are the answer to this inequality. Okay, so you can write it as x less than negative 2, right? This is x less than negative 2, or x greater, right, than 1. So this is x greater than 1, and this is x less than negative 2. Okay, so this is how you solve this inequality. Okay, 1.1.4. Let me get the question again. This is the question 1 from November 2020. Okay, you can see. So question 1.1.4. This is the question. Let's have it down. Okay, x plus 18. So square root of x plus 18 is equal to x minus 2, right? This is what we have here. And the question is 5 marks. You need to solve for x. Okay, solve for x. 1.1.4. This is the question. Square root of x plus 18 is equal to x minus 2. You can see. Let me close this. Okay, to solve for x, what you have to do first is to get rid of the square root sign. Can you see the square root sign? How can you get rid of this square root sign? You need to take the square of this. So when you take the square of this, you are going to drop this, right? And what you do on the left, you also do it on the right. Okay, let's do that. So you have this, and you have this, right? You close your bracket, you take the square of this, okay? So that this square root sign can drop. So if you have the cube root, you are going to take the cube of this. Since you have the square root, you are taking the square of this so that the square root sign can drop, okay? And so this is equal to this x minus 2. Remember, what you do on the left, you also do it on the right. So you are going to take the square of the right side, okay? So this is your right side, you take the square of the right side, okay? What you do on the left, you also do it on the right. And so this is going to drop. You only remain with x plus 18, right? The square root sign is going to drop. Since you took the square of the left side, you only remain with x plus 18, and this is equal to, you have this, remember this is twice, right? You have x minus 2 twice, because it is square. This is why we have it twice. So you have this bracket times this bracket twice, because we have a square there, right? And so you have x plus 18 is equal to, you have x times x, this is x squared, right? And you have x times negative 2, this is negative 2x, and then you have negative 2 times x, this is negative 2x, so you have negative 2x minus 2x, and this is going to be negative 4x, right? Negative 2x minus 2x, it will give you negative 4x. I hope you can see that from x times negative 2, it gives you negative 2x, and then negative 2 times x, it gives you negative 2x. So you have negative 2x minus 2x, which is going to be negative 4x. And you carry on, you have negative 2 times negative 2, this is going to be plus 4, right? Negative 2 times negative 2, it's plus 4. Okay, and now you can carry on. You have x squared, you bring it to the left side, it becomes negative x squared, right? This, okay, and you have this negative 4x, you bring it to the left side, it becomes plus 4x. So you have plus 4x and this x, so it's 4x plus x, which is plus 5x. I hope you can see that. And now you have 18 minus 4, right? Plus 4 to the other side, it's minus 4. So 18 minus 4, it's plus 14, okay? And this is equal to 0. You only remain with 0 on the right side. When you take everything here to the left side, you remain with 0 on the right side. And from here, what you want to do is to have the coefficient of x squared equal to 1, not negative 1. So you want to have the coefficient of x squared to be 1, not negative 1. What you can do is to multiply by negative 1 throughout, so that you can have 1 in front of x squared. So when you multiply by negative 1 throughout, you're going to have x squared, right? And then this becomes negative 5x, and this becomes negative 14, and this is equal to, when you multiply 0 by negative 1, you have 0. Okay, 0 times negative 1 is 0. So you multiply by negative 1 throughout, and so you have this. Okay, you carry on. So this can be factorized into 2 brackets like this. Remember, this is equal to 0. You can factorize this. So you have x squared there. So you are going to have x there and x there, because x times x will give you x squared. Okay, and now you have negative 14. Can you see you have negative 14? You need to use two numbers. When you multiply those two numbers, they are going to give you negative 14. And when you add those two numbers, they are going to give you the middle term. Can you use 14 times 1? You know that 14 times 1 is 14, right? But from 14 and 1, you can't get negative 5. Can you use 2 times 7? You know that 2 times 7 is going to give you 14. And from 2 and 7, you can get negative 5. If you say 2 minus 7 will give you negative 5. So I can use 2 and 7, because I know that 2 times 7 will give me 14, and 2 minus 7 will give you minus 5. So I'm going to have minus there and positive there, right? Because I want to have 2 minus 7 so that I can have minus 5. And remember, 2 times 7 is 14, okay? So I'm having minus there and positive there. You can see 2 minus 7 will give me minus 5. 2 times negative 7 will give me negative 14. And from here, what you have to do is to solve for x. So when you take this part, you make it equal to 0, you solve for x, you are going to find that x is equal to negative 2. And when you take this part, you make it equal to 0, you solve for x, you are going to find that x is equal to 7. So you have x is equal to 7. I hope you understand this. X is equal to negative 2, x is equal to 7. Okay, so now you have to check your answers. If you take negative 2, you plug in there, are you going to have the same thing on both sides of the equal sign? If you take 7 and plug it in there, are you going to have the same thing on both sides of the equal sign? Let's start with 7. If you take 7, you plug it in there, you are going to have 7 minus 2, which is 5, right? If you take 7, you plug it in there, you're going to have 7 plus 18, which is 25. And then when you take the square root of 25, you are going to have 5. So you have 5 this side and 5 this side. Let's see with negative 2. If you take negative 2, you plug it in there, you're going to have negative 2, right? Negative 2 minus 2, it's going to give you minus 4, right? When you plug the negative 2 there, you're going to have minus 4. And you do the same, you take negative 2, you plug it in there, you're going to have negative 2 there, plus 18. So you have 18 minus 2, which is 16. And the square root of 16 is 4. Can you see you have 4 this side, and you have negative 4 this side. So you have negative 4 this side, but you have 4 this side. Can you see the sides are not equal to each other? So negative 2 is not an answer. Let's reject this. So you are going to say x is not equal to negative 2. X is only equal to 7. So always remember to check your answers. You have to check your answers. So the next question, I'm going to use this space. Let me put a line here. Okay. Let me get the question. Question 1 from November 2020. Okay. So what is the next question? The next question is 1.2. Okay. 1.2. Right? So solve simultaneously for x and y. Okay. You need to solve for x and y. And this is the equation. You are given two equations. You need to solve for x and y simultaneously. Okay, so the first equation is x plus y is equal to 3. Let's write it down. X plus y is equal to 3. Let's call this our first equation. And the second equation is 2x squared plus 4xy minus y is equal to 15. Okay, 2x squared plus 4xy minus y is equal to 15. Let's call this our second equation. Okay, so we have two equations. We need to solve for x and y simultaneously. Let me close this. Okay, from here what you can do is to make y or x. You make x or y the subject of the formula. You can use the first equation or the second equation. You can use any, whether the first or the second. You make x or y the subject of the formula. The simplest thing is to go for equation number 1. Can you see? From 1, I can say that y is equal to 3 minus x when you take the x to the other side. So this is the simplest I can go for. Let's go for the simplest one, which is equation 1. So from equation 1, y is equal to 3 minus x. Okay, and this becomes our third equation. Okay, I hope you are following. So I'm saying that you can use equation number 1 or 2 and you make x or y the subject of the formula. Always go for the simplest one. Okay, from 1, y is equal to 3 minus x. Now from here what you have to do is to take 3 and plug it inside 2. Okay, make no mistake by taking 3 and you plug it inside 1. No, it's not going to work, because remember, equation number 3 is obtained from 1. You can see equation number 3 is obtained from 1. You can't take it and plug it back inside 1. It's not going to help you. You have to plug it inside 2. Because 3 is obtained from 1, you cannot take it and plug it inside 1. So plug it inside 2. Okay, so I'm going to say 3 into 2, not 1, because 3 is obtained from 1. Okay, so into 2, this is 2. You have 2x squared plus 4x, right? 4xy, right? What is y? Y is this. So you take this, you replace for y. So you have 4xy. Y is 3 minus x. Remember, we are plugging 3 into 2. So this is 3 into 2. So 3 is y equal to 3 minus x. So wherever there is y, you plug this. Okay, this is y, you plug this. And then you have minus y. What is your y? 3 minus x. Let's put it in the bracket. Always put it in the bracket. Okay, so this is your y. Remember, you have that negative in front of this bracket. So it's going to affect everything inside the bracket. And this is equal to 15. Okay, and so you carry on. You have 2x squared, that plus this 4x times 3 will give you 12x. And then you have 4x times negative x. It will give you negative 4x squared. I hope you can see that. And then you have negative 3 plus x. Remember, the negative is affecting everything inside the bracket. So you have negative 3 plus x. And now you have 15 on the other side of the equal sign. You bring it to the other side. It becomes negative 15. And so you have, this is equal to 0. You only remain with 0 on the right side of the equal sign. And now you carry on. You have this 2x squared minus 4x squared. This gives you negative 2x squared, right? And you have 12x plus x, right? 12x plus x, it gives you 13x. So it's plus 13x. And you have negative 3, negative 15. So negative 3, negative 15, it gives you negative 18, right? And this is equal to 0. Okay. And now from here, what you can do is to divide by negative 2 throughout, so that you can have the coefficient of x squared being 1. You want to have the coefficient of x squared 1. So you have to divide by negative 2 so that you have 1 there. You do that by dividing by negative 2 throughout. So when you divide by negative 2 throughout, this becomes x squared, and this becomes negative 13 over 2x, right? You are dividing by negative 2 throughout. When you divide this 13 by negative 2, you have negative, right? And 2. And you divide this negative 18 by negative 2, it becomes plus 9, right? By negative. So negative divided by negative, it's plus. And 18 by 2, you divide 18 by 2, it's 9. And this is equal to, you divide 0 by negative 2, it gives you 0. Okay. And now from here, what you can do is to factorize. So you need to have two brackets like this. Okay. You need to factorize. This is equal to 0. And so you have x squared there. So you are going to have x there and x there. Okay. Now you need to factorize in such a way that if you take this number that's going to be here times this number that's going to be here, you are going to get 9. And when you add the two numbers, they should give you negative 13 over 2. Can you factorize this? So if you are struggling to factorize this, I would suggest that you use a quadratic formula. Use it quickly. So you have to make your life simple. Don't stress trying to factorize this. Just use a quadratic formula. You are going to get the terms which are going to be here and there. Okay, let's use a quadratic formula. So this is the quadratic formula. You have it here. If you forget it, remember it's given on the information sheet. You can find it together with the question paper. Okay, let's use the quadratic formula. I'm going to use my calculator with the quadratic formula and find the numbers that I'm going to put there and there. Okay, let me use my calculator quickly. So make your life easy. If you are struggling to factorize this, you can use your calculator quickly. So the quadratic formula is negative b. What is your b? Your b is negative 13 over 2. Remember, this is your b and this is your c. Your a is 1. Okay, so what is your b? It's negative 13 over 2. Let's put it in there. 13. You can do this quickly. So you have plus or negative in the quadratic formula. Let me start with negative. Okay, I'm going to use positive after. And then you have the square root sign. And then you have b squared. So b is negative 13 over 2 squared. And then you have minus 4ac. So it's minus 4a. What is a? A is 1. And what is c? C is 9. Okay. Over 2a. What is a? A is 1. Okay. And so you have 2. Can you see? So when you use negative inside the quadratic formula, you get 2. So let's put 2 there. Right? And you change that. You change the negative to the other sign. What am I going to get when I change the negative to positive? So I put positive there. Now I'm getting 9 over 2. So I'm going to put 9 over 2 there. Okay. So you have to use positive first or negative first. And then after that, you use negative or positive to get the numbers there. Okay. As simple as that. Make your life simple. If you are struggling to factorize this, just use the quadratic formula quickly with the calculator and you are going to get the numbers there. And so now you have plus there. If you have plus there, it means that the signs inside the bracket are going to be the same as negative. So they are going to be negative there and negative there. So they are the same because you have plus there. When you have plus there, the signs are going to be the same inside the bracket as what? As negative. Okay. And so from here, x is equal to 2 or x is equal to 9 over 2 when you solve. Okay. So you have your x and your other x. Okay. Now you need to find your y. To find your y, you use this. So y is equal to 3 minus x minus x. Let's start with x being equal to 2. So y is equal to 3 minus 2, which is 1. You can see. Or y is equal to 3 minus x. Now let's use 9 over 2. Okay. So y is equal to 3 minus x. Now we are going to use 9 over 2. Okay. And so y is equal to, this is going to be equal to negative 3 over 2. I hope you can see that. Okay. And we have solved for question 1.2. Now let's move on to the next question, which is 1.3. Let me use the next slide. Okay, the next question, let me get the question again. It's question 1 from November 2020. Okay. So the next question is 1.3. You can see. So we did 1.2 in the previous slide. Now it's 1.3. Okay. 1.3. 1.3. If n is the largest integer for which n to the power of 200 is less than 5 to the power of 300, determine the value of n. The question is 3 marks. So the question is this: n to the power of 200 less than 5 to the power of 300. Okay. You need to determine n. Okay. And n is the largest integer for which this is valid. Okay. Let me close this. So there are many ways in which you can solve this question. Okay. I'm going to use the log approach. Okay. So what I'm going to do is to introduce log on both sides of the inequality. So I have log, you have this, right? Less than, you have log of this. Okay. So I introduce log on both sides. Okay. And then you take the exponent, you drop it down. So you have 200 times log of n less than, you take the exponent 300, you drop it down, right? And you multiply it by log of 5. Okay. So this is according to the properties of logarithm. You can do this. And now what you want to do is to get the value of n. Okay. So from here, what you can do is to first divide by 200 on both sides. You want to remain with only log n, log of n. So you divide by 200 on this side. You do the same on the right side, right? And so this 200 and this 200 cancel. And you remain with log of n, right? Less than, you have this 300, you divide it by 200. Remember, this is, you take your 0 there and your 0 there, you remain with 3 over 2, and this is 1.5. So 300, you divide it by 200, you get 1.5 log of 5. Okay. I hope you can see that. And you can carry on. Remember now, from here, you can see that I can take n is less than. Remember, if you have log written like this, there is an invisible base which is 10. There is a 10 there. There is also a 10 there. Normally, we don't write it. We don't write it. Remember, when you have log, there is an invisible base which is 10. So you have 10 to the power of this, whatever you have on the other side of the log. So that is on the other side of the equal sign or on the other side of the inequality sign. Whatever you have on the other side is your exponent. So this is your exponent. You treat it as an exponent. Whatever you have on the other side, remember that. whatever you have on the other side of the log, this is your exponent. So the base is 10. There is an invisible 10 there. So you have 10 to the power of this. You treat it as an exponent. Everything you have there. So you have 1.5 log of 5. You can see that. Okay. And so you have n less than. Take this and plug it in your calculator and see what the answer is. Okay. Let me use my calculator. This is my emulator. So I have 10 to the power of 1.5 times log of 5. I hope you can see 1.5 times log of 5. So this is my exponent, and this is equal to 11.18. Okay, 11.18. This is what I have here. Okay, so remember the question is saying n is what? Can you see the question is saying n is the largest integer for which this is valid. So what is the largest integer? According to this, n is less than 11.18. So the largest integer which is less than this will be 11. Can you see? So n is equal to 11. 11 is less than this. And this is the largest integer we can get. And we have solved for this question, which is 3 marks. Okay, we are done with question 1 from November 2020 on algebra. Okay, please remember to like if you find value in the video. I would like to see your comment in the comment section. Remember to subscribe and activate the notification bell so that you can have these videos coming your way. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.